Hello and welcome back to Triple Intimidate. My name is Hayes,
And I'm Pierre.
and today we have a very special guest we'd like to introduce you to. It is Ernie. Say hello, Ernie.
Hello.
So we've brought Ernie on today. He's going to talk about his history with Flesh and Blood and talk a little bit about some of the heroes he plays. And he's going to talk a bit more about that hero, and we're going to deep dive into it. So let's get going. So Ernie, you want to walk us through kind of your history of how you started playing Flesh and Blood?
For sure. So, like most Flesh and Blood players, I came from a card playing background before I started playing. So, tons of Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh, whatever. Went down the Haven, saw Hayes, you, and you're like, "Hey, bro, you should try out Flesh and Blood. It sounds pretty good." Started playing it. It was awesome. That was in April to May. Fast forward to August, we go to Kelowna for a tournament. I end up winning the 3K and winning $1,000 cash. It was fantastic. It felt amazing. As KO, I'll get into that. And now it is the new year. It's almost 1 year I've been playing Flesh and Blood, and it's been just super awesome.
I have a question. What was it? Literally me that got you into it? Because at this point, I don't know who I've introduced to the game and who got in different ways. But was it actually me?
It was you. So I went down to the shop to buy a box of Kaldheim. I think it was Kaldheim.
Oh, yuck.
The draft with my friends, and you were there, and you were like, "Bro, what are you wasting your money on that? Pick up this Blitz deck." And I was like, "Man, I didn't." Went home, looked it up, went back and bought the Blitz decks, the Monarch ones. Started playing casually at home, and then started playing on the shop. Went to a draft because I knew you would be there, and I'm like, "Yeah. Hayes said it's good. He'll be there. I'll go." And then boom, here it is.
Nice. That's rad.
Yeah.
It's almost like a different era because kids back in the day, we didn't have Talishar. We had to go to the stores and buy Blitz decks to try the game out. But now
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
you know, us Gen Z players were like, oh, you want to get into the game? Yeah, go download every best card and then just
Yeah.
exists and put it in a deck and then kick some ass online.
Well, like, dude, when I first started, like, literally, there's like two guys in Kansas who had stuff. It was myself and Mark, and it was a grind getting people to start playing because, like, I know, like, initially the game was seen as like a bubble, and people thought it was just a scam, just to like sell cards, and there's no game behind it. Because it like came out during like COVID, right? So literally no one was playing. But then eventually it picked up, and like we're Kansas is definitely like a magic town. I mean, that's
It's a
what
Magic
everybody
City.
plays, right? It's a magic city, yeah. So it's hard to get people out of that mindset of playing magic. But I think it's kind of a perfect time because some people are kind of burnt out about magic and just want something different. And once it started going, it really took off. So I'm glad we have such a good community that we do have now.
Yeah, you're right. It totally exploded in even the last like 4 months.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is absolutely insane. So, anyway, enough about that. Well, you want to talk about? So we're talking about Brute. This is the Brute episode. You want to talk
Yep.
about the 3K and just why you decided to play a certain hero, and just walk us through the event.
Yeah. So prior to the event, I'm a Brute main. That's when I started playing. I started with Levia. Just loved the whole Brute, Intimidate, Discard. I like variance and gambling in the kind of game. So Brute was initially just super good for me. It was the most fun for me. Going to the 3K is a Blitz event, so obviously I had to bring like the most gambling hero type, which is KO, which you don't know is just all dice rolling. Every time he does something, he needs to roll a dice. And 5 or 6 is amazing. 1 to 4, it does nothing. Went to the Blitz tournament. Kind of got some laughs when I told people I'm bringing KO because he's kind of looked at as the goofy, not good hero to play in Blitz. Ended up winning it after losing to Hayes in the prelims.
I was playing Kasai.
As
Which
Kasai.
is Kasai at the time was disgusting, and I think she still is disgusting. So that's honestly totally fair. But
Yeah. So lost to Hayes, still made top 8, and then beat a mech, a Bravo, the hardest hero to play, and then Icelander, which that Icelander was the one that knocked Hayes out.
Yeah. I got into top 4. I played the Icelander, and you played the Bravo.
Yeah.
It was super close for me that game, but I struggled so hard against Icelander. Yeah, I got knocked out, and the finals was you too.
Yeah. The Wizard matchup to Brute is just so bad. Like Brute just has so much AB against Icelander. It was rough for the guy I was playing against, who at the time I think was number 20 in Canada.
Yep. And because into like any AB, it's like Skullhorn and
And
did you just do
something else.
Skullhorn and Lantern?
I did Skullhorn and boots, and had
Yep.
gambler's gloves and my bark bone strapping,
As you do.
as you do. Yeah, so that was an amazing event, and that's what definitely solidified. That was probably my favorite moment of Flesh and Blood, even without, like, I know I won like cash money after, but if there was no prize and just winning, it was just so exciting to win with a hero that is just every time you do something, you got to roll dice, and all the boys there, everyone from
Dude,
Campbell's
it's
was the
also
best.
my favorite Flesh and Blood moment, and I was just watching. Like,
Unfortunately,
it was
Pierre wasn't there.
insane. Dude, like I can still remember because like I was kind of rattled about like that loss, you know.
Sorry,
But
man.
I was glad that like I didn't have to play into you because I didn't want to play the finals against someone I know, right?
Yeah.
Because it's kind of just feels bad. But like watching that, Ernie's just sweating bullets, rolling this
Yeah.
dice, right? Like it's absolutely insane. And then like literally like I don't remember exactly how it went down, but like just at the most integral point in time, you roll a 6, and everyone just loses their mind.
I can
Like,
tell you exactly when it happened.
let's hear it. You
I
gotta
can
tell us.
remember it
Let's hear
play
it.
for play. So yeah, I'm sweating like a beast in this chair. Thank God Jesse, one of our guys from the group, he saw how sweaty I was, and he's like, "Bro, I'm running to the front," because it was a weird event. So we were way in the back, and there was vending machines, like a 5-minute walk on the opposite side of the building. So I didn't have time to go get water before my match. So he ran there to get me water, and I was like, "That was the best." I was just so exhausted playing this game. And I had a turn. He had 4 cards and a card in arsenal. I think I was down to roughly like maybe 8 life, and he was also around 8. So Icelander with still had Striders up, had Metacarbus nodes. So I was in kill range. I do a turn where I roll Barkbone Strapping, get 2 action points, and I attack with, I can't remember exactly what the attack was, but it was a 6 attack, and I rolled uh, a 6, so it was coming in for 12, and I had another action point. And he starts going off with a bunch of spells, and I had a blue and a command and conquer in my hand left. He was just going crazy with it. I played the blue, the AB3, thinking, okay, then I'm an arsenal command and conquer and win next turn. But then he does another big spell that I think would have killed me. So I crack my Barkbone Strapping, roll the dice, get a 6 on it. So I get 3 pitch. I use 1 of it to stay alive, and he's out. That would have been his last thing. So I used 1, got me down, I think, to 2 or 1, and then used the other 2 to command and conquer. He was at 4 health, I believe. So if I missed it, he'd survive. Hit the 5, got a 12, killed him, and there's nothing you could do about it. So then we had 1. That was the most intense game. Yeah, people were just. I was screaming. I stood up. I remember flexing on this guy, but everyone was just screaming because it was just so hard to get it off, and it worked. I just rolled like you have to roll 4 separate things on that turn: Scabskins, Barkbone, 2 attacks, and each one worked.
That's insane.
That's my best Flesh and Blood
And
moment.
that wasn't a regular roll turn, was it? That was just a.
No, it was. I think it
Okay.
had to
Okay.
be. It had to be. I
That
can't remember,
wasn't.
but it just
Those
had.
weren't natty rolls. Like,
Yeah, it must have been a
yeah.
ready to roll in Arsenal.
Sure. Yeah. God. Yeah. That is insane. Yeah. Like, even I was glad I lost to watch that moment. Like, it was absolutely crazy. It
It was
was
crazy
excellent. It
because
was
my
really cool.
opponent didn't even know there was a KO in the event. When I sat down and put the hero down, he was like, "What is that?"
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, the only downside to that event is it's now known in our BC interior community as the Kayo Incident. And I think I got a stigma around me now.
Maybe no one wants to play the KO guy.
Yeah. Good thing it's
Oh,
CC the next tournament. Maybe I can make another better
you're
name for myself.
legally not allowed to play KO, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yeah, they messed up.
So okay, so Brute's as of now still your favorite class, right?
Yeah.
What is it that first drew you to Brute, and why are you still sticking with it?
Variants.
Yep.
I love, like, Yu-Gi-Oh, Joey, all his stuff was like,
Mm,
hey, spin the wheel, time wizard, flip a
right.
coin. That
Yep.
was just love that kind of stuff. So just initially it was just the draw and discard mechanic I really enjoyed.
Yep.
Um, I really like the rolling dice for stuff. So in like the funnier decks, you can run cards like um, bad beats and stuff, where it's just, hey, roll a dice and you get it, big effect. If not, does nothing. I loved that. And then I started playing against a lot of people. I was playing against at first were Guardians, and Intimidate was just so effective against them. And I can remember playing against one of my close friends, and he was playing Oldhim, and I was playing Reinar, and I kept intimidating, and I'd only do 1 or 2 intimidates a turn, but he was like just getting so tilted because I kept hitting his defense reactions perfectly. And he was so tilted, he's like, I will never want to play Brute again. Intimidate's too good. And I'm like, oh, you know what? You're right. I love Brute, and that's when it just solidified as my main hero.
Yeah.
Sounds
And also too, like you come from like a Blood Bowl background, so dice
Yeah,
rolling's
the
in your
Blood Bowl
veins,
background.
right?
Yeah, tabletop games as well. Yeah, just love dice. Love that dice jingle.
Yeah.
D&D.
Yeah. Yeah.
it sounds
And
to me, Ernie, you are not a salty brute player. Like when you roll the dice, if it's a 6, you're hyped. If it's a 1, you're like, I'll roll a 6 next time,
Yeah,
baby.
yeah. That's
live
just
and
the
die by
one
the
out of
dice
the way
roll.
for next turn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
also, I need to mention about the Clone event. The only reason I hit top 8 because I went 2 wins, 2 losses in the first 4 rounds. The salty brute player dropped, and it cleared up a space for me to get in the top 8.
That is a score. That's a dub.
So, Deb.
Yep. From my point of view, so after that event, I built a KO deck too, just because that was like the bandwagon thing at the time.
It was.
And at one point, like a couple months ago, I was like playing Dromai and stuff, and I just like wasn't doing well at all. And like I started getting really like tilted about the game, right? Like I was taking a bit too seriously, and I recognized that, and like I didn't want to turn to like everyone like knows that guy who's like really competitive and like really takes it seriously, and I'm like, I don't. That's the dark side. I don't want to turn into that, right? So then I built a KO deck and kind of a Rhinar deck, and it kind of reignited the fun portion of the game. Because if you're playing brute, like you can't take the game seriously. Like
No,
you
you'll
have
lose your mind.
you have
You
to
will just
roll with the
crash.
punches, literally, right? Like,
Yeah.
and one thing too, I think I think some newer players kind of pick up on Brute because it's fun, and I also think too it has a lot of interaction that I think Flesh and Blood is really great for, because like you're rolling dice, you're like picking random cards and shit, right? Like it's kind of fun for both players. It really keeps you on your toes. Where
Yep.
Flesh and Blood is really a game where you want to try and make the optimal decision. Brute goes, what happens if I take the decisions away from you? And so I think it just adds a very interesting dynamic to the game, and I think it's super fun.
Yeah.
And just being able to absolutely smash people on those turns where you get lucky is super rad.
You're totally right about the interaction. The best, one of the funnest part about playing Brew, yeah, is drawing, discarding, just putting down 4 cards face down and being like, pick one, bro.
Yeah,
Like, just take one of these cards, and we'll see what happens.
yeah, yeah. And I think like they have some really fun like I really like Reckless Swing, for example. Like out of
Yeah.
all the cards that do that, like damage on a D react, so like Steel Blade Shunt or like Sigil of Suffering, I believe, for Rune Blade. I think Reckless Swing is the most fun one. Like I think it's just really neat. And like Blood Rush Bellow as well, really interesting mechanic. Like you can do some crazy shit with that. And same with I really like Beast Within as a card too. Just like pretty much you'd think that like discarding cards that's bad, but with Brute, you're losing out on cards, but you get such a benefit from discarding your good cards, right? So it's very interesting. I think.
Yeah, I
Beast
really like.
Within.
Oh, sorry, Pierre.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like Beast Within is something that has super cool interactions with Uprising too. With like, um, when you play Brood against Icelander, and Icelander forces you to discard a card, but it's your choice.
Mm-hmm.
You just discard that, and it's like, oh, psych! Now maybe I'm getting a blue in my hand, and you actually kind of benefited me, right?
Yep.
Like, it's yeah, super cool card. And like, I don't know, Ernie was saying that he loves the variants. That's kind of one thing. I'm on the flip side. That's kind of what turned me away from Brute and being more into Wizard, because they're both super disruptive. The Of course not Kano. Kano just does his own thing, and you can either defend against it or you die. But Icelander is similar in the sense that like she's disrupting, she's doing things that are beyond your control.
Yeah. No,
You love the
I
randomness of
yeah
it, and you love the chaos, right? Like that's,
yeah
if you were to put a name to it, it's just the pure chaos that
uh, yeah. The pure chaos. Exactly. And I was talking to another Wizard player, and yeah, we were having this exact conversation. Yeah, like playing a Brute to playing Wizard is like the two polar opposites of Flesh and Blood. Of being like, hey, let's see how it goes, and we're just like, I need to know exactly what the next like Kano
yeah,
especially, where it's like
I
you
need
are
to
in
I
complete
need to
control.
know exactly how many resources I can spend to do exactly this much damage
Yeah,
to
and if a
just be
Kano
able to.
ever has the blind ability, it's like they're like, oh,
Yeah,
oh, dude, like I am out of control.
yeah, I've succumbed to the dark side. What do I
Yeah,
do now?
yeah. That's like they're just sweating bullets. They the a hero ability with no op.
Yeah.
For sure. Is
Uh,
there is there anything that pains you about playing Brute? Like, is there something that you're like, I love Brute, but this is just I wish there was something to overcome this mechanic or whatever.
Yeah. The only thing that I find frustrating as a result, I have the same issue that, well, I think everyone who plays at a somewhat competitive level has this issue is trying to not fall into the dark side of being like getting tilted, right? It's you got to keep your composure, stay cool. Even if it was like a brutal loss, you just want to
Yeah.
remember that, you're playing for fun. It's a game. Even at an army event, whatever, you got to stay cool. So I too have felt the call, even playing Brute, to just be like, yeah, just be upset about a match.
You did kind of swear off Levia. I mean, you sold me your Barbarian
Yeah.
Husk, or we made a trade.
Yeah, that was rough.
Was that just too much dying at your own hand, or
It was, yeah, exactly. It was just too much of like doing really well sometimes, and then just things won't line up the way that you want them to for her.
yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
that was a time. That was a time where I wasn't really like frustrated with losing. I just didn't really like the way you had to play for her to work. Like you had a limited thing you could do as her is you had to banish
that's
every
fair.
turn. There was
Yeah.
never a
Yeah,
time where you could just waste your turn doing something else or try some cool new strategy. Like, hey, you banish or you die.
yeah, for sure.
But the only matchup right now I find is where I can be like, hey, Brute needs something here because the Ranger matchup, basically, like Icelander, who you can deal with, the Ice Ranger matchup is insanely poor for Brute.
Yeah,
In the form of one or two frostbites just totally screws him over because it's hard. The pitch issue in Brute is what his problem is. It's hard for him to include blues. So when you have a frostbite or two frostbites, a lot of the time you're going to be lucky if you can swing for 6, but you normally can't because a lot of cards will make you discard, but you're pitching so much to play a card, you're ending up just over pitching for a mandible claw
yeah.
Barstow passing and just completely losing your tempo. So I think in the future for Brute, they need to print more blue cards with either 6 attack or just blue cards that are viable for Brute to use. Because really, there's not many.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a struggle with Lexi is like she threatens to make your turn fully useless, right? Because it's like you either block this and have no cards to do anything, or you don't, and then deal some damage and you get a frostbite and you can't have the 3 cards needed to swing in for like 8 with a 3-card hand or whatever it is, right?
Yep.
Um, I really when I mean I still kind of play Brute once in a while, and when I was maining Brute, I really loved the like swing big or um what's the other one? The pack hunt or some the
You get the reveal.
yeah, the ones that don't require a discard just because you can do something pretty powerful with a 2-card hand, right? And like I think you need some of those in your deck for sure in order to have options when, you know, some cards are removed from your hand not by will and all of a sudden you can't swing in with 3-card hand. You have to settle for something smaller or just swing in with your mandible claws because that's your only option, right?
I think that was an issue with Brute early on, especially like if you look at WTR, um, lots of cards say like as an additional cost, discard a card, yada yada yada. However, I think lately it's changed to like with like Wild Ride and stuff. It's when you play this, draw a card and then discard a card, and then if you discard 6 more, do this or whatever. So I think initially you see that earlier design space where sometimes like the more powerful cards require that discard. And then, of course, with Reinhard, that discard will trigger his hero ability. But I think later on, it turned into discarding to get an additional effect. And being able to draw first is good because you don't need 3 cards in your hand. And the fact that the downside being is since you're drawing a card off the top, there is a chance you're not going to draw something with 6 or more, which won't trigger the effects. But definitely having those cards that require 3-card hand can be pretty tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is like brutes that aren't Rhinar too kind of don't really want to be discarding cards as
Yeah,
badly as Rhinar does, right? Like that's a huge built-in piece of Rhinar's. Like I'm fine with discarding because I get additional value from my hero ability. Whereas like if you play Leviah, if you play KO, you might want to build your deck around some of the cards that are powerful without having the additional cost of discarding the card, right?
for sure.
Yeah, KO relies much more on the generics like Command and Conquer, and he's 6-attack generic because discarding for him gives 0 benefit.
Yeah. Moving forward with Flesh and Blood in the future, what kind of things do you want to see for Brute to make it better or change up the mechanics a bit? So that could be weapons, equipment, or cards. What do you think would be a
Yeah.
good addition to the kit?
So what Dynasty did is very interesting. So they brought in a bunch of cards that it's all about the 6-attack matters in Dynasty for Brute. And I find it weird because there's not a ton of support for it yet. Like Savage Beatdown. That card has the potential to just be insane. But there's not they make it so hard to play because it's cost 3, you have to already have discarded a card, and then it itself discards a card when you play it. So you need to be really lucky with your discards to keep your blue to be able to play it.
Yeah,
So I would love to see in the future is it doesn't have to be 6-attack cards, but viable brute cards like High Roller, where they're blue, they do a good effect like Intimidate or Buff. But you can include them more in the deck because brute right now in my list and a lot of lists on the internet include a lot of yellows because there's just the yellow version has the 6 attack, the red is 7 attack. So, and you already have too many reds. So you're forcing yellow just to fix your pitch and keep your 6 attack. So they need to have more cards, I believe, that either are 6 attacks that have a better effect or are blue. I think those are 2 things that Brew needs to improve his overall win rate.
Yeah, totally.
I agree with that, and I think like right now, like yellows are okay for the most part because I feel like on average the attacks are usually cost 2. But if you're running mostly yellows in a deck, like anything with cost 3, like good luck playing that.
And
There's
there
not a
is,
chance.
they printed Reincarnate, right? Which is
Right. Yeah.
the 7/6/5 in red, yellow, blue. So you run the yellow one, and it costs 3. Beast Within costs 3, which hopefully you never have to play, but sometimes it happens. Smash Instinct costs 3. There's a lot of yellows that they specifically are making those 3 costs.
Yeah.
So I think they designed it in a way. I think it happened a lot during the Monarch brute cards, where it was like, hey, if you're gonna run this in yellow, it's gonna cost 3, but you
Right.
get the 6 attack. And I think they overvalued 6 attack, so I think they need to reevaluate. Like, I like how they do a math in the brute cards too. Like, you ever look at Reckless Swing, where it blocks costs 0, right?
Yep.
It blocks for 4, but you have to discard a card. So normally with brute, if you were to block with just 2 regular cards, you're getting 6 block. But Reckless Swing is 4 block and takes that remaining 2 and gives it to your opponent.
Right. Yeah.
So they have a built-in like 6 matters for a lot of stuff, right
Mhm.
from Welcome to Wraith. Like everything's built around the number 6 for brute.
Mhm.
And I think I don't know how they can do it, but if they could just make it so 6 becomes blue and then 7 for yellow, 8 for red, which is
Yep.
would make brute fantastic. But that might also be broken. I don't know.
Yep.
That's just how I see it.
Because currently the only card with that pitch and attack value is Wrecker Romp, correct? Wrecker Romp is the only blue 6 attack,
Yeah.
and it costs
2 and
2
a discard.
and discard. So yeah, which isn't great.
It's not
But
great, but
I hate
it's
to
so good 'cause
interrupt,
blue.
but that is false. There's
Uh-oh.
one other
Oh,
card.
which one?
It's a Levi card though, so only
Get that
Oh,
shit out of here.
only
Soul
Levi
Harvest.
can use it. I forget what it's called, but it's
Soul Harvest.
yeah. No,
It
not Soul
costs
Harvest.
6.
It's a rainbow card. Like it's printed in red, yellow, and blue. It's
Like one
Oh,
of
the tree, the bark bone, or bark. I know what you mean. The rumbler, the tree guy,
yes, Deadwood Rumbler. There you
Deadwood
go.
rumbler.
There
You're
you
right. Yeah, it's right.
very nice. Yeah. But Lovia sucks. So
Yeah. She broke my heart.
what I think is the biggest disservice. There's 2 big disservices to Brute. One, they made Skull Crusher, Skull Basher, Bone Basher. What's
Are
the
you talking about the
what's
weapon or the gloves?
the weapon from Classic
Yes. Yeah,
Battles?
bone basher, bone crusher. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Why the F is it 2-handed? Oh my god. If that thing was one-handed,
Yeah,
it'd
that'd
be,
be hilarious.
it'd be sick. It'd be so good.
Handle a claw
Literally,
into a club. Yeah.
dude. Yeah, like you could like imagine. Roll with me for a sec. It's okay, this wouldn't really work. But either way, swinging with 2 freaking clubs and pummeling both of them, that's the peak. That's the peak.
That would be awesome. I think like a lot of people think that there's going to be a new brute soon. We, as in us 3, would like to see a shaman brute, even though that's
Yep,
goofy. But a shaman brute could use 2 little beat sticks. That'd be funny.
that's true. Yep. Do you think we will see a brute in Outsiders the next set?
I don't.
personally, I don't think so.
Me either. But if you were to have a brute there, having like a muscle, like an enforcer kind of guy for the
I was
underworld would be
thinking of
sick.
like a gladiator or something. Like in the pits, I assume
Oh,
they'd have like underground fighting rings or something. Have like this like enslaved brute who's like a gladiator or whatever. I think there'd be some cool stuff there. Or yeah, like a hired muscle kind of thing would be neat too.
You're watching too much
Um,
Star Wars.
I guess so. Literally Black Chrysanthemum in
Mandalorian.
Fab.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry, Book of Boba Fett.
Book of Boba Fett.
You
Yeah,
made it
I
to
think
Flesh and Blood.
that'd be pretty neat. So yeah, oh, dude, brass knuckle equipment. That'd be pretty sick.
Yeah, that'd be cool. 2-handed, brass knuckle.
Yeah.
Yeah. A new
So
keyword for Brute too. That would be something I'd love to see for Brute. So I want them to have a keyword where it's if you've intimidated, do this, or if you've intimidated twice, do this. I don't know what they would call it, like fearsome or something, but
Okay.
to get bonus effects on your cards for how many times you've already intimidated would be sick.
Interesting.
Yeah, when I first started playing Brood, I thought it would be interesting to have like, and this is probably the wizard in me projecting, but like something that could intimidate on your opponent's turn as kind of like, I mean, what's to say you could intimidate as a defense reaction to like prevent your opponent from doing as much on their turn, right? But I guess
That
it's a bit too much like counter what Brute is trying to achieve, right? Like Brute doesn't care about getting hit by big attacks because Brute just swings back and hits even harder, right?
you can't outswing the brute. You can only pin him down, and that's the best
Yeah.
way to beat a brute is to freeze him, to pummel him, to make it so he can't hit you as hard.
Yeah, I think overall Brute is just a really fun class. I think I didn't mention the second disappointment. Rock. Rock.
Oh, it's so disappointing right
I've
now.
never seen a community come together so hard uh as the Brute players in Fab did when they dropped the Rock spoiler.
Yeah,
Because everyone just lost their mind. And like the thing is, I feel like LSS knows how to make Brute good. They're just not willing to do it. Like they know they need to make more blue 6 attacks, and Brute would be kind of solid.
They know
Um,
what they need to do, but instead they're just gonna print a lifelink hero for a hero that is not even playable in CC anymore.
yeah.
yeah, honestly. So even what if they just made some blue 6 attacks that just don't block? So like,
That's what I'm saying. That's
that's
what I
good
meant to
early
mention
on.
with the reckless swing math.
Yep.
They could
Oh,
just
yeah.
do exactly that because they don't like you having more than 6 of something. Just
Yep.
take away the block value.
Yep. And then like early game, that's great because you're gonna pitch it. But late game, if Brute gets there, he's kind of screwed because he can't block anymore because he's gonna start hitting
Yeah.
all these blues that don't block, right? So
Does hurt.
It just feels bad when like Wounded Bull Icelander is swinging in for 8 and
yeah,
you're like, "Where's my blue? I can't do this."
yeah, honestly,
Yeah, he can't. But he does have swing big, so they made everything okay.
that's true.
LSS is still on the cool list for printing
Yep,
swing big in Everfest.
swing big is a really good part of the kit. I agree.
2 for 8 that gives your opponent basically nothing on the downside.
Yeah,
Like some heroes, like if you give that to a Bravo, to a Viserai, it is bad.
that's
But
true.
giving it to like Phi or a Warrior or something, it's like who cares? Take this
Yep,
Quicken token. There's
that's
no
very true.
downside. You just full block that. Here's a Quicken. I don't care.
Yeah,
When I
like when I'm playing Dorian to you or any Brute, if you're coming at me with a swing big, unless I've got like a steel blade shunt and like a piece of armor with 2 block, I'll probably take most of it because like I have so much access to go again. I don't really care about the quicken. But yeah, like against like Bravo, who could like staunch response the entire attack, giving him access to go again is kind of scary.
It's really scary. Like, specifically Bravo,
Yeah,
because it lets him do a huge attack and then hit you with Anathos, and
probably for 6.
he just takes so much tempo with the go again.
Yep.
Or he doesn't have to crack Mage Master. So he had like a turn coming up with his auras. It's very good.
Yep. Yeah, that's fair. Well, we should get to wrapping up. Do you have any final thoughts here, Ernie? You want to leave the viewers with? Any Brute shaman knowledge?
Yeah. Brute. So the key to playing Brute effectively is to put Meatball on your deck.
Meatball seems pretty good, but we're out of time. We can't really talk about that today. Thank you for coming back to Triple Intimidate. Thank you, Ernie. We'll have you again sometime when they drop the Boxer Brute in Outsiders. How's that sound?
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, boys.
Thank you. All right, everybody. That's it from me. Do you want to say bye, Pierre?
And me.
That's not it for me. I have so much more to say,
Uh-oh. Oh, no.
but I'll say it on the next episode. How's that?
Very nice. All right. Have a good night, everybody. Goodbye.